And hello, Spider-Man fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Zone TV Entertainment with me, your host, Jonathan. Once again, bringing you my thoughts and review for the brand new Sony Marvel film, Spider-Man Brand New Day, spoiler discussion, part 2. So, we already did my full spoiler review. I started that, but I wanted to talk about a little bit more stuff and also talk about, some details that I may have missed out in the film. I've seen the movie officially now 3 times. But you know what? When you watch it 2 more times, 3 more times, 4 more times, new details start popping up, and I want to discuss it more. So here we are. So if you have not seen Spider-Man Brand New Day, I highly recommend checking it out and going back and watching my other video, because honestly, it's not a spoiler discussion to talk about. There's a lot of stuff that we could talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the relationship between Spider-Man and the Punisher. Now, the Punisher, we all know who he is. We've seen him interact with Matt Murdock. We've seen him interact with his own characters in his own show. And, he's more a rated R type of a character. How is he going to fit in this show, this movie? Was he going to be kind of rated R, washed down a little bit? He was exactly the same as he always been. Peter's dynamic chemistry with Punisher just works for me in this movie for a couple of reasons. One, Peter kind of looks to him like a big brother. And, if you look at from Punisher's point of view, he kind of they don't really, show this, but they don't really explain it either. He has this kind of odd, father-son kind of dynamic towards Peter. Punisher lost his family. He never got that chance to be with, kind of not a loving father, but more of a father figure type of person for his kids. And he never got that opportunity. But with Spider-Man, even when he argues with him, the back and forth, oh, I saved you on Staten Island, you think I owe you a favor, blah 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 blah. He looks at Peter as like that young son he probably never had. And the chemistry just shows it, that the two of them, they may butt heads, but they respect each other way too much to not actually help out each other when it comes to certain situations. When Jean Grey was about to destroy half of New York City because her powers she uses her powers like full throttle, he was willing to go and help, Spider-Man as much as he could. The same thing when the Hulk was unleashed. So he literally went out there. It's like, yeah, because not only did MJ told him to do it, but he's like, yeah, I'll help him out. Don't worry about that. I got him. I gotta keep an eye on this kid. So, so that dynamic just really works for me very, very well. And I hope one day we'll get to see more in the future. And the whole notion that, people are saying that, oh, they washed down, Punisher. Yeah, Punisher is violent, but even if you watch the Punisher, one last kill special, how much violence did he did in that movie, in that little short? He did a lot, sure, but it wasn't like popping off heads and gushing blood everywhere. It wasn't that to that degree. I know in the comics we have that degree when it comes to the Punisher in certain comics, sure, but these are the movies, these are the TV shows. He's gonna be edgy as he can be edgy without going over edgy, if you know what I mean. So not get that rated M for mature kind of grade for what and you don't want the MPA to really nail you with that kind of rating. So yeah, so Punisher was just as good as he was. This is the same Punisher that I will see in Daredevil. Yeah, was he violent? Sure. Did it show a lot of blood and all that stuff? No, but you can tell how hardcore Punisher is even with a Spider-Man movie. And yeah, he went over the edge when he had to, when it comes to being, determined as a very violent character. But, you see that in here. And, he's fighting the Hulk. What the heck is he supposed to do to fight the Hulk? So, yeah, I don't think blood and violence and using big pew weapons can actually help his situation, even with the Hulk. Even if it was a rated R style thing, the Punisher would have been gone in 2 seconds if that was actually the case. But I thought the Punisher stuff in here was great. I love his dynamic with Peter. I love the way he just presented himself even more. I still think watching the one last kill thing was a complete. I think it's still a complete waste because honestly, there's really no change, but kind of between Punisher from then to now. Because even when he was with Daredevil, Daredevil was always telling him, "Hey man, you gotta change your ways. You gotta otherwise that's this whole thing that you go this vigilante thing that you're doing the way you're doing it, violently killing people is not gonna help you." And he's still damaged. He is still damaged. You can even tell when Jean Grey takes over his mind, and she's like, "Wow, this guy's head's got issues." You can clearly tell he's still working out with it. But having friends like Frank, Peter, and even Daredevil, kind of mellows him out a little bit. So it kind of works for him. So I'm glad they don't really change Punisher for the better or the worse because I think his character arc right now just works. And I would love to see him, in future, Daredevil stuff, his own project one day. Yeah, obviously he'll get his own movie one day. Maybe that will be rated R, hardcore, blood everywhere kind of a thing. But still, for what he is right now, he's perfect in my opinion. So I thought that stuff worked. Now let's talk about the Jean Grey stuff because Jean Grey. I'm hearing watching a lot of people other reviews. They talk about can Jean Grey be redeemed for what she's done in this movie, and honestly, she's done some things that most anti villains who think they're right don't usually come back from, but they end up doing. I mean, look at Darth Vader. Darth Vader did multiple stuff before he even became Darth Vader, and then he turned to the light side at the end and became a ghost. So if he can be redeemed, anybody can be redeemed. It's all the matter of if that character wants to be redeemed. That's the question. Look at Magneto. Magneto has always been, fight for mutant rights, fight for only my own kind, for F humans, all of that. But when he's with Charles, he kind of mellowed out a little bit, and then he kind of does some heroic stuff. Sometimes he still does it in the edge of like, I'm doing this because I need to protect my kind, but I'll do it if I have to get my people to safety kind of a thing. So, he somewhat can be redeemable too. And we've seen that in X-Men 97 as well. Look how redeemed he was in that after the destruction of Genosha. He just lost it. And then he started protecting not only humans, but he started protecting everybody. So Magneto can redeem, so can Jean Grey. Jean Grey did some despicable things here. She's gone after the damage control because of what happened with her sister. Her sister gets killed by damage control because the two of them have these abilities that damage control don't understand yet, and this is planting the seeds for the mutant regime to move in. So yeah, there's even a scene in here where she takes over a person's body and puts that person in harm's way going into the street, and then that person gets hit by a car. Dead or not, I'm not sure. They don't really specify if that person died, but, kind of shady area of like her doing that. But then again, you also look at that scene really well. Peter didn't do anything either to see if that person was okay. He was just too focused on trying to find Jean because she threatened to take out, MJ. So, you could also blame Spider-Man for doing that. And then, you have Jean possessing MJ, pretending to still be in love with Peter, remembering everything after the spell, and tricking him in a way, and then her going backwards on a rooftop to make it like, yeah, I can throw her off the roof, and I don't know what you're gonna do to me. You're gonna have to save her or take me out, whatever you want. It's your choice, and obviously she literally throws herself out off the roof, even when Peter has her by the throat, which is another thing that Peter's going through, and I'll get to that in a minute. Just seeing that was just crazy. So Jean Grey has got some darkness in her, and yet you can also blame it. This can also be the stages of the Dark Phoenix Force showing its ugly, pretty head. So that could be the cease for that, in hopefully 10 years. But we don't need that right now. But yeah, Jean Grey has done some despicable things in here. She's even at the point catching the damage control's head boss, holding him in a chair where she was being tortured like her sister was, and then they killed her sister, and then she had glass on his face, literally by his eyeballs, so she can go to that dark side. But it's humanity's way of bringing her back that kind of helps her kind of like, oh, maybe she can be redeemed. Because at the end of the episode, the end of the movie, excuse me, she talks to Peter, and then she goes inside his head, and then Aunt May comes in and says that you're special, you're loved, we all love you, we know you have powers, we get it, but we don't care about that, we only care about you, kind of thing. And that's what makes you you. And you always have to remember that. So when Aunt May was talking to technically Peter, but it was really talking, and they foreshadowed to make it look like Aunt May was talking to Jean, and made Jean kind of realize, yeah, I maybe have these powers, but I don't have to do this alone. I have Peter now. He's my friend. He's trying to help me, you know. And then she kind of let go a little bit, and you know, she's now gonna go find herself. She ends up leaving on a bus in the end of this movie, and you know, she's heading, I guess, I don't know where Westchester is, maybe north, south. Not really 100% sure, but she ends up going on a bus somewhere in the countryside. So maybe she's headed towards Westchester. Maybe she'll meet Charles Xavier, who will help her understand her better. Maybe have that family. Meet Scott, fall in love, be, you know, the great stepmother that she's going to become, you know, to Bishop. To Cable, excuse me. So, you know, one day we'll see her again. We're going to see her in Secret Wars. So hopefully in Secret Wars she's more involved and she will help people out. She even helped Peter when he got shot. And we all thought he was going to die. She was there with him, holding him, using her powers to make sure that that bullet or whatever it was does not like screw him up more damagingly that he already did. So that way Punisher could take him to the hospital and fix him up. So I thought that stuff was all great in this thing. It really showed that, yeah, Jean's done some despicable things because obviously, you know, being, you know, if you read the comics of the X-Men, the mutants are always being prosecuted, you know, for being who they are. You know, they can't help it. Whether they're the Warlocks, hiding in the sewers, the X-Men themselves, you know, any other mutant on the street, they would do despicable things just to protect themselves. But does that mean they're all wicked? No, they just, you know, they're scared of their own, you know, of their own ability and their own power and their own thing. You know, a lot of people don't understand that, and that just, you know, makes the X-Men character so kind of relatable to you in real life today. You know how people are today. Sometimes they act a certain way to certain people. So, you know, it goes with the territory, I guess. So, yeah. So that's what I love about the Jean character in here. And the way that they display her powers was so much different and so much cooler than we got in previous iterations. And I love the other iterations of Jean Grey. And I've always loved Jean Grey. Jean Grey is probably one of my favorite X-Men characters. Period. It's her and Cyclops. And I need her and Cyclops to be like the front and center of the new X-Men movies, because if they're not focused on them and only focus on Wolverine, then what is the point of even having Jean Grey in this universe? Like, seriously. They need to focus on Jean and her abilities and her powers and her relationship with Scott and her being second command of the X-Men, you know. Yes, I love Wolverine and I love Storm and I love the entire the other X-Men characters, but Jean Grey and Cyclops' story is so connected to not only Professor X but also the entire X-Men team that they're the ones who have to find themselves before they realize that they're each other's, you know, equals, and the X-Men are their family, and then they can be okay, move on with their powers and embrace their powers beautifully. So that's what I think about Jean. I think she's just a great character so far, and I think Sadie Sink did a really good job of bringing this character to life, and I'm excited to see her move forward with this character for the next 10 years. So yeah, we shall see how it turns out. And I think with having Peter as her friend, knowing that, yeah, she may not be with him, but she knows that he will have her back no matter what, and she has his back. She's not alone right now until she eventually meets with the X-Men. So right now she's on a journey to self-discovery, so she'll be on doing that. And then when Secret Wars comes around, and if she finds out Peter's hurt or injured or needs help, I'm pretty sure she's going to pop up and be like, yeah, I got your back. We're friends. Let's do this and let's protect each other, and we got each other. Then she can go on and meet the X-Men and do her thing there. So yeah, I'm excited to see the journey for Jean Grey moving forward, and I think it's going to be fantastic. So yeah. So now let's talk about Spider-Man, because honestly, Spider-Man stuff was just just as great. You know, everybody was like, okay, is Spider-Man going to turn into the Man-Spider? At one point, I thought he was going to turn into the Man-Spider because his powers were kind of going all wanky. And we find out it's his emotions are doing this to him. Kind of like when Peter from Spider-Man 2 was like, yeah, I can't balance being Spider-Man and being Peter Parker. You know, I'm in love with Mary Jane, but she's in love with somebody else, and he just kept losing his powers. You know, except this is a different kind of a situation where Peter's trying to balance, is being Spider-Man all the time, and he's not letting himself be Peter Parker again. Yeah, he wiped out Peter Parker, clean slate. He could start over, but he never thought about that. He never tried. He kept trying, you know, to himself, talking about the letter, talking about how he's going to get MJ and Ned back, and trying to figure all that. And while that's happening, the spider part of his body is taken over, and you even see his eyes go, you know, that black, and everybody's like, oh, the Venom symbiote. It's not that. It was the spider taking over. It was Spider. The spider's like, okay, you want to be Spider-Man? I'm going to make you full-on Spider-Man, and you're going to end up, your humanity is going to be gone. And that made him angry. That made him vengeful. That made him everything that we haven't even seen in the, you know, the Venom stuff yet. So seeing all of that and him trying to figure out how to dampen that power, because he was even scared, because he ended up hurting somebody in this movie. He ends up hurting a police car with police officers trying to stop Jean, who was controlling Scorpion at the time, and he threw the police car at him, and he beat the crap out of Scorpion, and, you know, being controlled by Jean, and he couldn't help himself. He got the organic webs. His spider sense was going all, you know, was on full volume up to 13 and broke the dial and kept going. So he couldn't control it, and that's all because he's not balancing his life. The best things about Spider-Man as a character is the fact that he balances both very, very well. He can be Spider-Man, but also be Peter Parker, be that nerd, be that, you know, guy who's, you know, kind of shy around girls and all that. And he can balance both, and it makes him stronger as a character on both Peter's side and Spider-Man's side. Yes, he has to be more cautious when he loves someone, because he puts them in danger. Absolutely. But with this movie, he had no one except himself, and he was just putting Spider-Man. He just like, yeah, everybody forget about Peter Parker. I'm going to forget about Peter Parker, and we're going to move on from there. And that's how it is. And I think that was just, you know, hard for him to deal with. He had the inhibitor, which, by the way, I think that inhibitor is going to be the start of when they start making the dampening collars to take away, you know, Meta's powers, you know, mutants and other superpower people. So that's going to be a future tech, because, you know, Bruce Banner has his version. Peter made the one version that he created. He even left one at Damage Control's headquarters when he took it off and realized that he can balance both and be both Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And he finally let go of his problems. You know, he was holding on to the death of Aunt May. He was holding on to the fact that he lost both Ned and MJ. And MJ doesn't even love him anymore. And at the end of that, when he was fighting the Hand, he was getting his butt whooped. And then when he finally realizes that, okay, I can be both Spider-Man and I choose to be both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the powers went back to normal. He went back to being full-on Spider-Man. He was able to do what he can, and he fought the Hand. Even though I think the Hand was kind of wasted in this movie, because they were only in the beginning just showing that they got their butts whooped by Spider-Man, and they ended up working for Damage Control, and then they fight Spider-Man at the end. It was a great scene. I love the scene. Don't get me wrong. It's just that narrative-wise, it just didn't make any sense to have the Hand there. They were just there because technically the only villain that Peter is facing in this movie is himself. That's the villain of the movie, guys. If you're wondering why there was really no villain in this movie, if you take out Jean Grey, she was just a threat. She wasn't the villain. She was the threat. Peter was the real villain, because he was not letting himself be both Peter and Spider-Man. Excuse me. Ooh. Anyway, and I thought they did that. They handled that really, really well. And I just love how Peter can go to MJ, still talk to her, kind of be shy at the same time. And yet, even when she turns him down, by the end of it, he kind of feels okay with it. She's still in his life. They're still friends. Even though I personally said in my last video, and my spoiler review free video, I said I didn't like this because I feel like they were rushing it. But now I understand after watching the third time, it's like, yeah, they kind of rushed it where they kind of, broke the spell, but they still setting up where they're restarting each other. So I do appreciate that, and I do, retract what I say a little bit back when I said it. But still, I thought that stuff was great. And after seeing it for a third time, it opens your eyes a little more when you see a movie multiple times. This is why you have to watch it 3 more times before you can do a real proper review. And I think everything just works in this movie. Again, no real villain. And this is the first Spider-Man movie that doesn't really have a villain in it. Like, him. Yeah, he fought Scorpion. By the way, Scorpion was great. I love Scorpion. I hope we get to see more of him. I forgot the actor's name. He's the same actor who plays Tobias Wells on Black Lightning. He plays Tombstone. I hope we get more of him. He looked cool. He was only there for like a couple seconds. So yeah, so there's that. But yeah, I think now moving forward, we're gonna see Spider-Man be Spider-Man and balance in both Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And this is where you can set up the symbiote coming after him. Him thinking that, maybe his life is too perfect, and then he goes back to being back at broody and losing everything again. Maybe he falls in love with a new girl. There was a new girl that he meets in an elevator in his work at his new apartment. So that could be the new Gwen. That could be Gwen Stacy, another girl. Who knows? But now he can move forward and try to find a balance between Spider-Man and Peter Parker and mash them together, so that way he can have the best of both worlds, and it can just work for him. So, yeah, I just thought this was a great movie. After seeing it 3 times, I'm still debating on where I put it on my top Spider-Man list of Tom Holland movies. Overall, I don't know yet. I think I have to rewatch the other Spider-Man movies to really get a sense of where I put this one in. But I think I have a pretty good idea of where to put this one in the Tom Holland era. So, yeah, I really do like Tom Holland. I think he's fantastic. And the fact that, he's going to rebuild that relationship with Ned and MJ, I understand that now better now. Because when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, they're rushing it. Did they take away what they did in No Way Home just to bring this back? And now I understand they're gonna do what I wanted them to do in the first place. I wanted them to slowly rebuild so that way they can have that friendship again and start all over. And then he could fall in love with MJ again. And I think that's gonna happen moving forward, but we have to wait and see. I love Zendaya. I'm glad that she's still around. She didn't get, hurt in this movie at all, because there were a lot of theories that, MJ's gonna die in this movie. No, you really can't kill MJ unless you're gonna change it where you bring in Gwen and then kill MJ for Gwen, then that'd be okay. But change it up a little bit, So because I know in the comics that usually never happens. So but it'd be kind of cool to do in the movies. Well, we shall see. But yeah, guys, again, this movie is fantastic. The action is great. The Spider-Man swinging stuff was amazing. Oh, his relationship with the cop girl, the cop lady, I loved it. I loved every moment those two were on screen. I wish they actually interact with each other outside of the mask, because I think she would have handled it pretty well, but also be very concerned and kind of like a mother figure to him, because she has children of her own. So she probably would have understand him a little bit more better and gave him more of a comfort space for him, and it just would have worked a little bit more better. That would be kind of cool if they did that. But still, great character. Hulk was great. I'm glad he's freaking back Hulk now, like real Hulk again. Punisher was great. The action scenes were great as well. Jean Grey is awesome, and I cannot wait to see the X-Men stuff now. I'm so pumped for that, and I'm so ready for that now, and especially since they planted a lot of X-Men mutant stuff seeds in here to set it up. Yeah, I'm ready for it now. So Marvel's back, guys. So they did a great job with this movie, and of course Sony as well, because this is also a Sony project. They all did a really good job, and I'm very excited to see the future. So leave me a comment below. Let me know what you guys thought about Spider-Man Brand New Day. Did you guys finally get a chance to watch it? Got to see it way before, before it started going sold out? Because stupid amount of money over the weekend, and I know a lot of people are trying to figure out how to get tickets. The buckets are gone. You know, I tried. The buckets are all gone. I couldn't get. I was able to get one, but that wasn't for me. But so whatever it is, leave me a comment below. Let me know. Stay tuned for more. Thank you very much, and have a good day.